welcome back. There's a large globe sitting on the table right now, and the reason for that is because we're talking space. Dave Brody is here. He is an expert on that, space.com. You write for that. We're going to, on the heels of the State of the Union address, which, did you watch that last night?
I did indeed, yeah.
The president is talking about innovation and sort of moving things towards the future. Space travel, though, NASA's going through some issues right now. People are saying, maybe we shouldn't be funding NASA. Maybe it should be, space travel should be privatized. You're sort of agreeing with that, are you?
True. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I'll tell you what's going on out there in the community. Well, one of the things Mr. Obama said last night, which made all of us space enthusiasts kind of sit up and take notice, is he called this our generation's Sputnik moment. Well, what Sputnik was all about was there was a little satellite launched by the Soviet Union that came over your house, and the implication was if they could put a satellite over your house, they could drop a nuke on your head. It was a very tangible, clear and present danger. Now, what is our clear and present danger? Well, one could say that it's the mounting debt that we have, and who owns that debt? A substantial amount of it is owned overseas, largely by the Chinese, who, interestingly enough, have a program to go to this thing, something that we did 4 decades ago.
That would be the moon?
That would be the moon, yes. If you don't know, this
it's
is
hard
the moon
to see
globe.
the craters and everything on that from far away. So, do you feel? Okay, well, let's just start with this space travel. Do you think that's going to aid in the president's plans to sort of bring the economy back, and if so, how?
I think the economy will come back long before space travel has a chance to exert much of an effect on it. But stuff that we do in space is symbolic. It's symptomatic of how we do large technology programs in this country. And there, I think there is a good model to look at. Okay, there's a lot that's going on in the private sector right now in space. We've seen that it's possible now that the International Space Station may have a module attached to it, which is developed entirely privately, or mostly privately, by Bigelow Aerospace. Robert Bigelow, you may know him as the billionaire owner of Budget Suites. So is he trying to mount a hotel? There's a shot of Mr. Bigelow and his modules. Is he trying to mount a hotel to the International Space Station? Well, that's a bit of a misnomer. What Mr. Bigelow is developing are volumes in space that are inflatable that can be attached, and it's entirely a private sector initiative. And unlike what we've done up till now with NASA, which are long time frame programs, this thing will be up in 2 years, or it won't be anywhere there at all, because that's Mr. Bigelow's business model. He wants it quick.
How does Jeff Bezos fit in?
Yeah, Jeff.
To the space industry.
Amazon founder. It's interesting to look at a certain population of these guys who are on the crest of the technology wave in space. A lot of them come out of the information technology industry and the internet. Bezos is one of those. His program is to take a vehicle that he's calling the Blue Origin program. The first vehicle is called Shepard. It's actually a return to a program that we started in the 90s and then abandoned. It's a vertical takeoff, vertical landing rocket. Lands, as we say in the space community, the way God and Robert Heinlein intended. You don't throw any of it away. You get the entire vehicle back, which means that it has airline-like operability. You can turn the vehicle around very quickly and run it like an airplane.
Paul Allen, how does he fit in?
Yeah, Paul.
He's got a lot of money, we know that.
He does, and he used some of that Microsoft money, or some of his own personal money, to fund Scaled Composites, which is a company run by Burt Rutan, genius aerodynamicist, to win the X Prize, which spawned Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic space industry. So now you see a suborbital at first vehicle goes up to an altitude where you can consider yourself an astronaut. Space tourism has been what has been publicly mentioned.
How do you feel about space tourism?
I think it's a rich person's game. If you have the money and you have the disposable income, you're welcome to do it. I'm more excited by the fact that the same vehicle...
You have the risk factor?
Well, it's not so much a risk factor. I've done a little bit of simulation training on the Virgin Galactic profile. It's not going to kill anybody, I don't think. But what's interesting to me about it is that you can do interesting experiments, interesting industrial processes in the suborbital environment and then the orbital environment, and these vehicles will give us that. Yes, they'll also give us tourism, but I think there's a whole silent industry that's going on.
Do you think that private industry, that silent industry, will take over NASA, for instance?
I don't know that it will ever. Yeah, I don't know that it will ever take over NASA. I believe that there is, and this is me opinionating wildly.
That's fine. No, we like that.
There is a legitimate role for government in research, and President Obama mentioned that last night. Whether that leads to unleashing the wave of innovation that he talked about, I think that is really more of a private sector thing. So yes, NASA should exist. It should do the science. It should say, we we have a mission, which company is going to get me there? Not necessarily the cheapest, but the best. Who's going to guarantee success?
Jeannie?
Do you, as a space enthusiast, do you feel that there has been a real lack of vision, not only from this president, but recent administrations as it concerns the issue of space? And it sounds like you support moving to this privatization, but can we do that in the absence of real leadership on the public level and a real vision coming from the top?
I think we actually do have a real vision from President Obama that we did not have in prior administrations. And
which is?
Funnily enough, it is very private industry friendly. It is saying, no, we don't need to go back to the moon with people been there, done that. What we need to do is to go further. And NASA should, in part, exist to let contracts. And these contracts should not be cost-plus contracts. They should be fixed-price contracts.
And you see that as a real vision of where we should be and where we're going to privatize?
I really do.
Okay.
I really do.
Do you think that the metaphor that President Obama used really was perhaps foreshadowing ideas about where technology will be bringing us, say, in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years? I mean, was that his point?
I think that's beautifully stated. It was interesting to see Barack Obama channeling Jack Kennedy, wasn't it? In space particularly, I don't know that we will get there in that quick a time frame, although we might with privatization.
But I mean in terms of the agenda.
Yeah, in terms of the agenda generally for technology, yes, I do think there can be a rapid turnaround. Will it lead to the creation of millions and millions of jobs? I'm skeptical about that because, the trend of technology industries is to get smaller and smarter and more robotic. One thing that we have to fix that is related to the space program is this notion of immigration. What sense does it make, and this is once again me opinionating wildly, what sense does it make to say you can come to this country and pick strawberries, illegally, but if you come here to get a science and technology education, then you have to go back to your home country and help them build their industrial base instead of the United States industrial base. A similar set of circumstances happens with the ITAR restrictions, the International Trade in Arms Regulations. It's not very friendly to companies who are trying to privatize space industries and other technologies because the State Department says we're afraid that your technology will somehow get to Iran to allow them to have missiles. I think Iran is capable of purchasing its missiles from others. I don't think that we need to be quite so restrictive on what we do to private industry in this country using ITAR.
Very quickly, like the State of the Union last night, Americans, voters like to see the change. We like to see the results. When the president, for instance, as we were talking about, when the president said, your paychecks have increased, that was something that was very tangible, so to speak. Americans were very, very enthusiastic about the space industry, about NASA back in the 60s because we saw, the landing of the moon. Right. That was something that was very tangible. Now it seems like it's sort of this out there thing, and we're not really seeing things that, we may not know what we're seeing. Right. What are we going to be seeing in the coming decades?
I hope that you will see a declining price structure in space, which resembles the airline industry. You remember how airlines started. When the airline industry in this country is, but we didn't. Well, let me pick a better example. When we opened the American West, right? We didn't do it by building one railroad car that went from here to California. Well, what we did was the covered wagons were essentially private entrepreneurs and settlers who wanted to go and try and make a living, and then the transportation infrastructure found them.
It's a very, very good example.
That's kind of what we have to do on the frontier of space. There is a there, but we've got to quit thinking of space as a program and start thinking of it as a place where we can do cool stuff.
On that note, Dave Brody, space.com, science and space writer. Very, very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next coming decades. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Okay, we're going to take